So we're in 2018, and honestly, everybody gets pretty offended with just about everything these days, so why not really offend some people today and talk about gender equality? What's up everybody, Derek Rosansky here, your obstacle activist, and on this channel we do OCR gym reviews, gear reviews, and other OCR related content just like this one. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. So on today's episode of Rant Filled Friday, we're going to be going over obstacle standardization, and that is gender equality in OCR. Should things be heavier for men, lighter for women? Should things be easier for women, harder for men? How should that be? Should there be standardization in obstacle course racing? Or should you have that divide between men obstacles and women obstacles? Obviously, I can't speak for the women's side of it, so I'm gonna have a special guest today. Chrissi Shewchuk. Okay, so in obstacle course racing, most series have different sets of rules. Some series have a standardized obstacle list where both men and women do that same obstacle. There's no changes, no differences in variation of that obstacle. But in other series, there is a variation. Men do a heavier weight, women do shorter walls, so on and so forth. Okay, so I brought Chrissi on today because I want to get her opinion on if there should be one standard for all obstacles, both men and women, no matter what their gender. So what do you think?
So yeah, as a female in the sport, I tend to lean more towards the side of making all of the obstacles the same for men and women. So you have in Spartan race, they have the bucket carries, which is a different weight for men and a different weight for women. And I think that if you're gonna have one race, I really think that it should be equal for both men and women. Races like Savage Race, they have one standard for both men and women, and I think that that's really cool. Back when I started OCR like 3 years ago, I couldn't get over a 6-foot wall, let alone even think about going over an 8-foot wall, and I think it kind of sets the standard for women just in general. As an example, at Spartan Race, if I only ever did Spartan races, on the 8-foot wall they have like that red hat.
Right, yeah, they have that little block to kind of help you get up and over that.
Exactly, exactly. So you come to learn to use that and rely on that being there. Well, then all of a sudden I did my first Savage Race and wait a minute, there's no helper block.
Yeah, because for those of you who don't know, there's an 8-foot wall at Savage Race, and whether you're a man or a woman, you don't have that block. You have to get over that wall because it's mandatory obstacle completion if you're in the pro, so you don't have that block.
Exactly. So in order to get over that, I had to push myself to a new level of training. Right. And ultimately, I'm 5'3", and I was still able to get over that wall. And that was such a huge accomplishment for me. And I think just across the board, that's something that obstacle course races in general can start looking at. Right,
and I mean, I think, you know, in terms of fairness too, I mean, you have people like Kevin Donahue and, you know, other male elite racers like myself. You know, I'm 5'6" on a good day. Kevin Donahue's even shorter, but he's like 5'4", 5'3" or something, you know. He still has to get over that wall. He can't use that block. But then there is, you know, an elite female who, she might be 6 foot tall, but she's able to use it.
Exactly.
And I, you know, that it doesn't make it, you know, a fair even race across the board. And I get there's a men's elite and a women's elite, and you're judged differently on that. But it just makes it a totally different race, and you have varying people across both men and women. I don't think it makes it, you know, very fair.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that.
So in obstacle course racing, you know, you have your heavy walls, but outside of that, you do also have your other obstacles that are gender based, such as heavy carries. So men are usually required to lift or carry heavier weight than women.
Yeah, they have that in Spartan races, and there's been a couple other races that I've seen that where they've had the men carry something heavier than the women. So yeah, with regards to the heavy carries, I think that there can be one standard across the board. Right now, the different races have a really different feel to them. So in a Savage Race, for instance, we have that block, and it's the same weight for men and women, and it's pretty light. But then you have races like Spartan Race where you have two different heavyweight bucket carries, or you have two different size logs, something like that. It's pretty difficult for the women, but I think that we can all find a middle ground with that. In City Challenge Race, they had the women carry 2 cinder blocks. And a lot of this comes down to whether or not women are strong enough to do it. And you don't really know how strong you are until you actually do it. When I heard that the women had to do a double cinder block carry, same as the men, at first I was like, are you kidding me? That like, like, are you serious right now? And then I did it, and the women that I did it with, they all were able to complete it. It's a new level of pushing yourself and challenging yourself just as another woman in OCR.
Right, and I mean, kind of hitting on what you said about trying to find that good middle ground. I mean, races are, race series are doing that. I mean, if you look at OCR World Championships, Savage Race, they're finding that middle ground. Obviously, Savage Race, it's a little bit lighter, but things like OCR World Championships, they're finding that good middle ground of, 50-pound rec bags. 50 pounds is something that's challenging for women, but also still, really challenging for men. And one thing that I think race series can do is, to find that middle ground, to make it challenging for both men and women and not make it too easy for one or the other, is to change the carry itself. So use that same weight of, like, say, the 50 pounds, but instead of, just a really short, quick, and easy back carry, do it on a steeper incline, make the carry longer. That way, even if you're a really strong, buff dude, it's still going to be challenging for you, because now instead of going there and back, you're going to have to go a quarter mile or, on a double black diamond. It makes it that much more challenging, and you still have to be strong no matter if you're a man or a woman to do that.
And just to comment on that too, I think that the rec bags are like a phenomenal training tool and a great...
I have one.
Honestly, it's one of the best ideas for a heavy carry across the board, because it really... As a woman, you're able to lift it. As a man, you're able to lift it. And I think that it really finds that middle ground. It's the perfect thing.
Right. Rant inside the rant. Spartan, please get rid of the pancakes. They suck. Also, please get rid of the burlap bags. They're even worse. Although the ones that are like half filled, they're better. But even then, they're like a quarter filled and they're too easy to drape. Just please get rid of them. Get a rec bag.
I like the pancakes. I like the pancakes.
We'll talk about that in another video. All right, before we go any further, there's one thing I need to go grab though. I'll be right back.
Where are you going?
I'll be right back. There's something I need to do.
Don't leave me alone. Come here. Come here. Come here. Sit. You're so good. I need a bone to do her tricks.
Okay, I'm back.
Ooh, you brought me a snack.
No, it is not yours, it's mine. As you guys know, I can't do a Rant Food Friday without my Halo Top. Today's flavor, we got oatmeal cookie. Very enticing. Now we can get to no.
Sharing is caring.
Not when it comes to Halo Top.
As a female in OCR, which is generally a male-dominant sport just as it is, I think it's important to raise the bar for women and just to have a higher standard. So my position on it is to make it standard across the board. There's no better feeling than when you complete a race and you know that you did it at the same level as the guys. And that's something that I really liked about Savage Race and OCR World Championships. It was a real solid sense of like victory. Just knowing that I was able to do something that all the guys can. And this is 2018, so this is what we should be doing. We should be pushing that bar more and more.
Right, and there's nothing more humbling There's nothing more humbling either than being out on the course where it is all standardized for both men and women and being chicked. Yeah, that's a fun one. Trust me, I know.
That does kind of bring an interesting point. Just as a guy in the sport, when you see a female come through and she just beasts through an obstacle, and maybe you didn't get it on your first try, like, what does that do for you just as a guy? I
mean, it makes me want to work harder as a racer, because that woman now just did the exact same thing I did. She did it better and faster than me, and now she's beating me. And I can say she's truly beating me. Whereas, if you're in a series where you have that divide, like, oh yeah, you did the Hercules faster than me, but you're pulling, I don't know how much it is, like 50 pounds less or whatever in the weight. It's not the same.
That is true. That's an interesting point that you bring up about the Hercules, because just for fun at the last stadium race, I decided to try the men's Hercules, and I was able to literally launch that thing up into the air where I previously wasn't able to do that. And it's just a matter of working harder just to kind of push yourself a little bit more. I kind of like the idea, because it's not impossible. The men's Hercules is really, really heavy, but it's not impossible. And if it's something that you want to get good at, then you're going to work harder to be able to do that.
And I still say you can find that middle ground too. You don't have to make it extremely heavy so that you know, women are really struggling with it, but you don't need to make it super easy like the women's currently is for a man to do. You can find that middle ground so that's still challenging for a man, but also challenging for women. And I've seen plenty of women who are stronger than myself and other men out there, and vice versa, where you see men who aren't strong as some of the women. You know, like I've seen both of those sides.
I think right now there's a little bit of an element of fear with it. I think if obstacles were standardized across the board, I think a lot of women would think that they couldn't do it, or they would be fearful that they weren't strong enough to complete it. As a woman in the sport, and like I said, when I first started in OCR in 2015, I was an open racer. I did my first Spartan race. I think I failed at least 6 of the obstacles. I maybe got 1 ring across on the rig. I couldn't get up the rope climb.
Yeah, and I mean, that's another thing too. I mean, if you're talking in terms of elite versus open, I still think you can have that divide, but put it in open. You know, it kind of hits on my previous video of, you know, your Spartan elites, if you're elite or not. You know, if you're open racer, you can have those handicaps. I mean, you're going out there, this isn't, you know, you trying to go and win money. You're going out there and having fun. So if you can't do something, you should be able to, you know, have that handicap. But if you're an elite racer, I think there should be, you're an elite across the board. There's a level playing field no matter if you're a man or if you're a woman. You should all have to do the same thing.
I agree with that 100%. There was an obstacle recently at one of these races called the Devil's Playground, and it's basically a backwards staircase. And ultimately, a decision was made in the middle of the race because the women were having trouble getting up that backside using only their hands, but the men were able to. So an executive decision was made that women were now allowed to use your feet. To me, I wasn't too happy with that decision. I think at the beginning of the race, the rules should be completely laid out and not changed.
Right, and I mean, and even at that point, you know, it's not the same obstacle. If you're making it that you can use your feet on it, it completely changes the obstacle.
Right.
It needs to be standardized from the beginning. You can't change halfway through.
Right, exactly. One of the things about that is if you have an obstacle that, you know, people are having a really tough time getting through, and we're only talking about elite right now. If there's nobody on the podium, then there's nobody on the podium. And as an elite athlete, I want to hold myself to a higher standard than that. If I'm not able to do an obstacle and I have to surrender my pro band, or if I have to do penalty burpees or whatever the race is that I'm doing, then so be it. And I'm going to work harder and make sure that I'm able to do that obstacle next time. And I've seen that happen a lot. You see that sometimes in obstacle course races. If it's really rainy out one day and the weather's terrible and there's only one man standing on the podium because nobody else was able to complete the obstacle, we're not going to diminish the obstacle.
Right, and I think that actually happened a week or two ago at Terrain Race. I forget exactly where it was. I think it was out west somewhere, and I think Benny Gifford was the only one on the podium. Yep. I mean, I don't know if women were on the podium or not, but I know he was the only man on the podium. So it should be standardized, and if it's hard, it's hard. If you can't do it, you can't do it, but it has to be that level playing field no matter what.
Yeah, and I know that they had that at Savage Race a couple years ago. They only had 2 women finish and were on the podium. So, you know, the race director's not going to go in and say, well, okay, we're now going to make it okay for women to use their feet, or you can climb up the side of the wall now because, you know, all the women are having a really hard time doing it. But no, you're able to do it, and it's about holding yourself to a higher standard and just believing in yourself. As a woman, believing that you can get over that wall, believing that you can carry that heavy carry. You can do it. Women need to believe in themselves a lot more.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at other things, you know, outside of obstacle course racing, like, you know, take Ninja Warrior, for example. All their obstacles, I mean, that's one of the hardest, quote-unquote, like, obstacle courses there is to do right now is Ninja Warrior. And they don't change things for men versus women. Yeah, no woman has yet to complete it, but only one guy has so far. I mean, they're hard obstacles. They're meant to be hard.
These women are literally, they're pioneering, though. When American Ninja Warrior first started, no woman was able to get up that warped wall. And then suddenly one of the shortest in stature women I've ever seen was the first woman to get up that wall, and nobody thought that she could do it. And now we're just pushing the envelope more and more, and women are getting closer, and they're not changing the obstacles. The women are getting stronger.
Right, I mean, if you look at people like Jesse Graff, I mean, 2 years ago, it was pretty much just revolutionized, you know, Ninja Warrior. I mean, Casey Catanzaro was one thing getting up the wall, but now you have Jesse Graff who is going further than any guy has on some of these courses and faster, and it's blowing your mind, but they're getting that much better and that much stronger, so the obstacles have to stay that same way too.
Exactly. I think that the way that this needs to be looked at is women believing in themselves to train themselves and push themselves harder and be able to do those obstacles the same way that the men can. The answer is not to make the obstacle easier just because you're a woman. The answer is to train harder and push yourself harder so that you can ride up there right there with the men.
On that note, I'm actually out of Halo Top. Yes, it's empty. I ate that fast.
Seriously? We've been here for like a few minutes.
Well, that means the video's done now, so that means, we can stop talking at least.
Didn't even save me a bite.
Sorry. All right, so with all that being said, so obviously it seems like you're on the side of things should be standardized for both men and women, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so now I pose a question to you guys, the audience. What do you think about it? Should things be standardized? Should women do the same as men and vice versa? Drop a comment down below and let me know. All right, so I guess that's the end of my video. I mean, do you want to do my outro?
I could do that.
I mean, I don't really have an outro. I kind of just put my hand to the camera, so I mean, you could do that.
Okay. Thanks for watching, guys. I don't like that one.
You don't? Oh, it's so good. It's one of the best ones. It's one of the best oatmeal cookies. How do you not like the oatmeal cookie one?
It's a texture.
It's oats.
Oh.
Hence oatmeal cookie, there's oats in it.
Well, I don't like it.